Okay, today I'm going to go ahead and go over the review. First off, we're going to look at find the rate of change. I'm going to identify what my x and y columns are. So this is my x, this is my y. To find my rate of change, that's my slope, I'm going to take two y points and subtract them from each other. So I'm going to take 80 and 40 and I'll subtract them in this direction, 80 minus 40. I must choose the same corresponding x points, so I need to choose 10 and 5 and subtract them in the same fashion. So therefore my slope will equal to 40 over 5, and that reduces to 8. The next problem, number 2, is to find the rate of change from a graph. Remember that what I taught you about choosing points that touches, say, like at the origin right here, or it touches perfectly at the grid lines, in between each of the grid lines, or if it touches either the y-axis or it touches the x-axis, those are perfect points. So in this situation, I'm going to go ahead and find the rate of change by looking at the origin, which is 0, 0, and the next point up, which is 2, 8, 80, sorry. And this guy right here is 0, 0. So those are easy numbers, right? So I can just go ahead and choose 80 minus 0 over 2 minus 0, and I will get 80 divided by 2, which will give me 40. That's my rate of change. The next part is find the 0, y-intercept, and slope. So they're talking about the 0. They're talking about, in this situation right here, they're talking about where does it cross the x-axis. So looking at this, it seems to me that crossing the x-axis at 6, 0. That's a big clue, okay? A 0 in this situation here they're looking at is where it crosses the x-axis. The y-intercept is over here. And that looks like 0, negative 4. Notice the pattern. Notice there's always a 0 in the x-axis, or the x-coordinate I should say, for y-intercept. And notice that the y-coordinate for the x-intercept is going to be 0 as well. To find the slope, I can now look at these 2 points. Since I have 2 points, I can use them to find my slope. So I'm going to choose 6, 0 as my second point. So I'll choose 0 on top of here minus negative 4, which is my first point, or first y point, divided by 6 minus 0. Simplifying this gives me positive 4 over 6, which gives me 2 divided by 3. So I've now completed this task. I found the slope, I found the y-intercept, and I found the 0, which crosses the x-axis. Okay, I need to find the domain and range, and that's on the second page. So here, we're going to look at the domain and range of this problem. Don't worry, the other graph will come out on the paper when I upload it for you guys. So I want to find the domain. So domain, I always draw vertical lines that go straight down through the left endpoint and vertical lines that go straight down through the right endpoint. So lucky for me, I have a line segment here, and I can easily see where my domain starts at negative 5 and where it ends at 4. So notice that I have an open dot or circle here, so I'm going to use this inequality. X is greater than negative 5. I have a closed dot over here, so I'm going to use this inequality, less than or equal to 4. So my complete statement for my domain is x is greater than negative 5, but less than or equal to 4. Now for my range, I draw a red horizontal line through the lowest point of the graph, and I draw a red horizontal line through the highest point of the graph. So notice I'm just using the endpoints of the graph, but doing vertical and horizontal evaluations to figure out what my domain and range is. So here, I start my lowest y point is going to be negative 2. My highest y point is going to be positive 3. So then my range reads negative 2 is less than y, but y is less than or equal to 3. So that's my range, and this is my domain. That basically tells me how this graph is being created. Those are all the values that can create this graph right here. Now find a reasonable domain and range. Joe had a summer job that paid $7 an hour. That should tell you a big hint. $7 an hour is a rate. Okay, so that means that's how much money he gets paid an hour. It's like you working at Fiesta, Texas, and that's how much they pay you per hour. Now, Joe, he worked between 15 and 35 hours every week. So that's a dependency. So if he works 15 hours, he's going to get a minimum amount of money. If he works 35 hours, that's going to max him out at a certain amount of money. So his domain, I should actually do this in blue, his domain is actually the hours that he works. So he's going to work a minimum of 15 hours, or he can work a maximum of 35 hours. Now, to find the range, we actually have to build an equation for that. But that's pretty simple, because they tell you how much money he's actually going to make per hour. So he's going to make $7 every hour. So all I have to do is multiply those minimum and maximum hours that he could possibly work to find out what his range is. So 7 times 15, 7 times 35. So that's going to give him a minimum of $105 if he works 15 hours. Or if he maxes out to 35, he can earn $245. So again, this is his low end, this is his high end. And how do we write that in mathematic notation? We write it as 105 is less than or equal to the amount of money y that he can earn, but is no greater than, but can be equal to $245. So some of you guys are already probably working. You guys kind of have a hint about that. Depending on how many hours you work, that's your domain. You can range a certain amount of money that you can make. Okay, going on to number 6. Using a function notation, solve for the following. If f of x equals 5x plus 9, find f of negative 2. So right here, f of negative 2 means I replace negative 2 for every x that I see. So f of negative 2 is equal to 5 times negative 2 plus 9. If I do the math inside the parentheses first, I get 5 times 7 now, which will give me 35. So f of negative 2 is 35. Okay, find the slope of a line whose equation is 3x minus 5y equals 15. Okay, the first thing you need to do is take a look at what that means by the slope. The slope is your rate of change, and how we have to do that is, here's a trick. I can go ahead and divide everything here by 5. So the first thing I'm going to have now, I'll have 3/5 x minus y equal to 3. Okay? Now, the next step you would have to do is you would have to move this 3/5 x over to the other side. Okay? But, so what that happens here is I'll have negative y is now equal to negative 3/5 x plus 3. So notice I just moved some things around, okay? I'm just moving things around. Then I have to get rid of that negative sign by dividing everything by negative 1. So that means y now equals to a positive 3/5 x minus 3. So what did I do by dividing by negative 1? I basically just flipped the sign of everything that I have. So here, this is my slope. Okay? Now, another way of looking at this, I'll show you guys on Monday, but it's another trick. But I'll talk about that on Monday. But this is a correct way of finding out what my slope will be. Okay, so just to make sure that I have all the right signs, if it's not positive or negative, making sure that I have everything done correctly. I basically isolate y by itself. Okay, number 8. What is the slope m of the line passing through the points 3, 1 and 2, 3? So then my slope is going to be y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So if I look at this, this is going to be my first point. So first point is x1, y1 coordinate. My second point is just x2, y2 coordinate. So following that, m is going to equal to negative 3 minus 1 over 2 minus 3. So this gives me negative 4 divided by negative 1. And I divide by negative 1. I change the sign to make it positive 4. And that's my answer. Alright guys, so we move on. And that should be it for today. And we're in the last part. After a rainstorm, there are 2 meters of water covering a road. The water recedes at a rate of 0.25 meters per hour. Right there, that's a big clue. If they tell you a rate of, that's going to be your slope. Okay? Express the depth of the water as a linear function of the time t in hours lapsed from the end of the rainstorm. Now, here's another big clue they give you. They say that the water recedes. Recedes means it drains, like watching a bathtub and you unplug it and then you watch the water just go down the pipe. That's what it means. It recedes. So you're losing water, you're not gaining water. Okay? So now you know that you're already starting at 2 meters. Okay? So they want you to express the depth d of the water as a linear function of the time t in hours elapsed from the end of the rainstorm. I've taught you guys about this function, y equals mx plus b. Okay? So instead of using y, they want you to use d as y, and they want you to use x as t in this case. So d equals to your slope. Remember what I said about earlier when I said something about rate? That's going to be your slope. And the next part is it starts at 2 meters, so that's going to be your b. Now remember, it recedes, right? So it recedes, so it means it's draining. So I should put a negative sign in front. And that's my answer there. So that's what I'm finished with here. I'm going to leave it for you guys to look at the one at the bottom. We'll catch up on Monday and see how everything works out. If there are any questions, obviously, we're there to answer it. And let's prepare for our test on Tuesday.